I'd like to welcome everybody to this session of the monthly board meeting. My name's John Arguelles. I'm the vice president, and I will be running the meeting today. A couple of changes, maybe, so we can move along. First of all, we've got a pretty large agenda today, so we're going to ask that if you want to speak, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, and everybody's entitled to come to the microphone once so that we can get through this session. We've got a lot of things on the agenda today. So with also, we have the chat open. So for those of you at home, you're more than welcome to send a question at any time. And Beth will read those out to us. So I'd like to confirm that there's a quorum present. We have 6 out of the 7 board members here. And the next thing on the agenda is to approve the minutes from the previous board meeting.
So I move to approve the August 16th, 2023 board meeting minutes as presented.
Second.
Any discussion or comments? I'll call for the question. All those in favor? 6-0. The next is a certification of the board candidates for the 2 positions that are open this year.
So the board's election committee met this morning, chaired by Mr. Bob Brunetti, and they have recommendations to make for the board to approve. The first is a motion to approve the recommendation of the TVPOA Board's election committee certifying the candidacy of, and this is in alphabetical order, Michael Braddock, Ed Grolemond, Donald Hart, George Luttrell, and Mark Pantley for the 2023 board election.
Second.
Okay. Call for a vote. 6-0.
And the second item of business that the committee discussed this morning would result in this motion to approve the recommendation of the TVPOA Board's election committee to not vote POA-owned lots in the 2023 board election.
Second. Any discussion?
Well, just clarification is the board has not voted these lots in previous elections, and we're just following that precedent.
And another comment, the board, based on being a representative of the developer, has the right to vote 2-1.
That would be true.
So that's not in effect either.
Yeah.
Maybe just one more clarification. Since the declaration provides for 1 vote per lot, that's why the board has to make this decision every year, whether the POA lots, which are owned by the POA or the developer, same thing, wants to vote them, and we've never done that.
So that's the only comment I had.
Any other comments? Call for the vote. All those in favor? 6-0, passed. The next is the Blue Book revisions. Entertain a motion to accept
So I'll make the motion to approve the residential construction handbook, quote unquote, the Blue Book, as recommended by the Architectural Control Committee as of 9/20/23.
Any discussion?
Are we going to discuss any of the revisions?
They were discussed in a town hall.
And in that town hall, we were talking about, I believe Chet brought up that we were going to adjust some of the fining, and we were going to talk about all things like cutting yards and
The process in
the
general.
process in general.
So
Correct.
Quick update, please.
Quick?
Yeah, quick update, yeah.
Okay. Quick update is that all of the processes have 3 steps, every single one of them. And at each one of these steps, the homeowner is able to stop or qualify the process in its tracks. So regardless of whether there's a fine or not, when a letter goes out to the homeowner that says you're in abeyance of this rule of the Blue Book, the homeowner then has X number of days to respond to the POA and say, yep, I know that, I'm fixing it, or I didn't know that and I don't understand why, and then they have the ability to come and ask questions and get clarification. At that response, that first letter stops. If there is no response at all, the homeowner ignores it, then a second letter goes out and says, okay, now you have 7 days to either respond or qualify this problem, or fining will commence. At that point, you still, again, have the ability to raise your hand, hey, wait a minute, I missed the first letter, I didn't understand that, here's what I need to do, or here's what I can do. Contact the POA, have conversations. Again, the process stops. So you really, one more time, really have to not want to listen to the POA at all, ignore us, basically telling us politely to go pound sand, or you'll get help, or you'll get it resolved, or you'll get it taken care of, and there will never be a fine involved. The fines are there for that 1% out of the entire community that just doesn't care. And that's it. And so we've put all the stopgaps in there so that nobody who's trying is ever going to get caught up in any fining or anything else.
So, to follow up, Chet just explained about the 1%. It's probably less than 1%.
I would agree.
Very, very few people. But again, you use the term pounding sand, you can use the term ignore, disregard, whatever, and that is then affecting the ambiance of Tellico Village, the other property owners' home values, et cetera, et cetera. And it goes from yard art all the way to roofs falling in that this falls under, okay? So I then want to make a point that I want everybody that's on the videotape and in the audience today to fully understand. Chet was asked by me to give a quick update, correct?
Yes.
Correct, okay. Chet and the Public Works Department, which ACC reports to, and the ACC, Clayton Taylor, Michael, those guys, are on staff, and the ACC property owners, that's where this started, because they're dealing with those enforcement issues on a weekly or bi-weekly, bi-monthly basis, and they're becoming more and more and more. And I want to make the point that Chet was asked to report on the progress, so now you understand, he understands, but we, the ACC property owners, and we, this board, are directing him to make these changes. It's not him driving it down our throats. Everybody understand? All right, because that seems to be the word in the community that he's making us do things. No, we're making him do things. Okay?
So I have one other comment, just to make sure everybody understands. We're approving the entire residential construction handbook. The whole thing, including the revisions that have been made and recommended by the Architectural Control Committee. So the new one will have the date 9/20/23 on it, and it will be effective for all purposes.
And Beth, how soon before that goes on the webpage? Okay.
Also, to answer one more question, for those who have lived here many, many years, and you have a change in your home that is no longer allowed by the Blue Book. Whoa, am I in trouble now? How am I supposed to know what's going to happen? If you have a permit for it, there's no question. That was permitted at that time, you're good. Everything's good. The second question will come, I'm a new homeowner, I bought this house, I'm reading the Blue Book, and oh my God, there's something about my house that doesn't fit the Blue Book's rules as it sits. You can then go to the ACC and find out if there's been a permit pulled. 99.9% of the time, there will be a permit on record that you can get a copy of so you have it in case you're ever questioned. So the moral of the story is yes, there have been changes in the Blue Book over the years that can include everything from water fountains in the front yard to swim spas to all these other things that have now changed. But if you have a permit that gave you permission at that time to do it, you're good. It doesn't matter that it was in there. That is your point of reference. So I just wanted to qualify that because that was somebody's concern, and it's a fair question. for
There's
sure.
another concern that's been raised to me is some things that are now requiring a permit didn't require a permit in prior versions of the Blue Book. So there will be no permit.
Yeah, as an example, and we discussed this at the ACC meeting. And
We did too.
And all this is, I moved in 2007. I go buy a spa, a hot tub, put it on the lower deck. It's not visible from the street. I got a neighbor back here that can see it, but he hasn't complained yet. And it did not require a permit. So I have one without a permit. And to your point,
As do I.
somebody purchases my house, they go inquire, did the Whites have a permit? You're going to look up my address and you're not going to find it, but it's known that I did not require a permit at that time.
Yeah.
Correct?
So that data is stored in that particular homeowner can be informed
By address, yes.
by address. And we do track all of this by address across multiple homeowners.
So,
Well, one more. Chuck, can you touch on the concept of self-help?
So in our documents, and by the way, this has nothing to do with the Blue Book. This has been in place since time immemorial as far as Tellico Village is concerned. It allows for the community to correct problems at a particular homeowner's house by the POA and then charge the homeowner back and put that on their account. It's called self-help because, as an example, back to that less than 1% who do not want to mow their lawn or do not want to fix their fence, or they love their bright pink door and they refuse to comply. We can go in and fix that fence, mow that lawn, theoretically paint that door, and send you a bill for it, and you'll have to pay it. And it's called self-help. And that again is not anything new. You've had that since forever.
that's in the declaration.
It's in the declaration, and by the way, we've probably used that, I don't know, 5 times ever. So it's not like it's a big deal, but it's there, and it's for those situations where we're required to keep up the look and the cleanliness and the appropriateness of our community, and the declaration allows us to go in and fix something that a homeowner refuses to fix and then bill them for it. Okay, just want to make sure everybody's got that.
Any other questions? Any comments from the audience? Okay, call for the question then. All those in favor? 6-0. The revisions are passed. We're to the CEO's report.
CEO's report is going to be straight to the... Yeah, sorry, now the mic's on. The CEO's report will be straight and to the point. There's a lot of other more important things to talk about today. One of the things I wanted to talk about at Tenassi, we are now at the point of doing some final drawings. We have reduced the size, reduced some of the options, and got it down within the specs that the board had given us to follow. And so we're now moving ahead with drawings so that we can go out for a construction manager, called a CM, and that person's going to help us get some really solid numbers. Right now, we have some average numbers based on the number that I've thrown around forever, the $312 per square foot. And based on that number, we are well below what the budget that the board has given us, but that number may or may not be correct. So we want to go out and get real numbers so we can get within about 90% of what it's really going to cost us one way or the other. So that's where we are. We have progressed to that point, which I'm very excited about, but now the real work comes. So we have lots and lots of stuff to do still, but we are moving ahead. I just wanted to throw that in there because I didn't want anybody to think that we had died in the water there somewhere. We're still
No.
moving ahead quickly.
And because as John said, we're in a hurry today, or not necessarily, but you've got a town hall meeting coming up?
I have a town hall meeting coming up, and in that town hall meeting, I will share with you all those drawings, all those renderings. We'll discuss costs, we'll discuss what the changes were, why they were there, what the square footage is, how that square footage reflects to the old Tanasi, how it reflects to Tokwa. And we'll cover everything from parking lots to number of bathrooms. And we'll also be giving that presentation. I will not be the only one giving that presentation. It will be done by the committee. And each section or topic will be handled by a different person on the committee, because the community needs to understand that this was not Chet's building, this was the Tanasi Committee's building and what they came up with. I was nothing more than a facilitator. And so it's important that the members of that committee have a say and have a voice, and it's important that the community hears that voice. So yes, that will be the town hall function for that as well. Second thing on my list was, it's just to keep the board informed. At the end of this year, Teleco Dirtworks contract comes to a close, and we are in the process of evaluating the impact of that cancellation of that contract, how it affects public works, how it affects all of what we do with water and sewer, since they had their hands in a lot of that area. The land we'll get back, the inventory that we will be managing differently, just a whole raft of things. But I wanted to let you know that we're on that as that comes to a close. And that's pretty much, everything else is the standard stuff. We're all doing great. Staff is doing great. Our new CFO is doing great. She hasn't run screaming from the room yet, so that's all kind of a good thing. And all the staff members are pulling their own weight. Frankly, I am blessed to have probably one of the greatest group of people I've ever worked with, and I mean that sincerely. That's all I got, kids. Let's move on.
Any other comments? Okay, we're to RV storage. Mitzi?
Thank you. Thank you. This will be quick as well. I owe you a follow-up from a previous board meeting where we presented a proposal to potentially look at putting in our budget this year a project to build our own covered storage unit. So at that time, we had told you that we would do a survey. This is just a very quick, high-level review of the survey. If you can see, there was 320 responses. Are you interested in the covered storage? Yes, no. There's the numbers, 196 to 124. What location? I mean, obviously by default, Loudon area is bigger, so I'm assuming more people from Loudon answered the survey, but that's 269 to 51 versus the Kahiti location. What size space would you need? These were the options that we provided. The option of the smaller size, the 252 people, that's a 25 by 13 by 14. Then that's, again, these are just high-level reviews. We received multiple comments and suggestions on our survey and what it is that they would like to see in Tellico Village. Do you currently use covered storage at another location? There's the yes, no's. The no's was 223 versus 97. And then when would you need covered storage? So the majority there, it looks like 138 to 137. It's either 0 to 6 months or 1 year. 6 months to 1 year, there's only 45. So, it looks like within the next year to 2 years. So we kind of circled back, got together. Beth got some additional information since the time of the survey. So we wanted to put a quick follow-up to you all today as the board to let you know what our findings have been since the survey has gone out. There is actually a developer who is going to be building these type covered storage and RV slots right behind the library in Tellico Village. It's not in Tellico Village, but they use the library's driveway because they own the library's driveway. And that whole 4 acres there is going to be exactly this. They will have motorhome slots, there's boat slots, there's covered storage. They're even proposing a wash station. I won't give you what the price is yet because, again, he's still, putting forth exactly what his his project will be, but there will be smaller fees versus larger fees for larger RVs with electricity provided there. So at this time, our small group decided we would like to just punt this project for actually putting any money in this budget for 2024 for next year, and let's see what this developer can provide to our villagers, how quickly it gets full, because we know that he's got the land space to actually add on to what this first round will be, and kind of let us focus on the Tenacity rebuild, Kahiti kitchen renovation, things of that nature. But we do agree that looks like we do have a pretty good selection of villagers that have said, yeah, we would use it and we want it, but we also think that what this guy's about to provide right at the library is going to actually take care of some of the needs that we have currently, much quicker than we would have done it anyway, what he's about to develop. So just wanted to give you a follow-up on what our findings were and show you the survey. For the board members here, I'll be glad to have Beth or Lindsay send you the actual survey comments and feedback. A lot of it was your prices are too high, or here's what I pay in, another location. So we could certainly at least share those with you.
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, thank you, Mitzi. The next topic is food service. And John Orr is going to take care of this presentation.
Okay, well, let me just go to the timeline of this. I'm sure most everybody's aware that we've been looking at food service this year. It's been talked about probably for at least a year now. The RFP went out at the beginning of April, but we probably started this formal process at least 30 to 45 days before that, drafting the RFP. You can see what's taken place since it went out. There's been meetings with all the operators. We sent it to 7 different food service operators. We ended up getting 3 proposals back. We're not going to talk about names of who responded, because we're going to show you some of the results of what was given to us in the form of proposal, so we don't want to attach names to it. But once the proposals got back, which was 7/20, we formed a food service search committee, I guess is what we were calling ourselves. So it was myself, Mitzi, Mike Braddock, and Jeff DeGula, the purchasing manager. So the 4 of us were charged with analyzing and reviewing the proposals. And then, given that, we had a set of criteria, and the criteria we used to evaluate these was the financial impact to the POA versus our current contract. Increased utilization of our dining facilities, because that's some of the feedback that we've heard over years is our food service establishments are underutilized. Then the opportunity that food service and service in general, the food menus and the service could be improved. And then is the option offering a coordinated management approach across all dining facilities. So we were using those kind of broad guidelines to evaluate the proposals. And again, the financial one was a bit of a work product, having to build financial models of what it would look like to the POA for each option. And basically, I'll show you the bottom line of the options. So we've always had this, let's just run it ourselves option. It's been out there. We've tried it, 10 years ago, I think, food service was run by the POA. And since then, it's been outsourced. So that's always been an option. But the 3 proposals, you can see the financial impact. And this is if I look at the food service P&L that we see every month, it includes, all the building costs, the depreciation, all the maintenance that goes into it, insurance and taxes and all that is included in there. And this is what we've been doing. So in 2022, that food service P&L showed a $813,000 loss. Now with Tenacity gone, 23 looked a little better. Only lost $582,000. And then if we look at the top there, that was the estimate for what would it look like in 24. So better, if we just renewed our current contract as is, no change whatsoever, we're guesstimating it would be about a $562,000 loss. And then the in-house was, again, it was a lot of financial modeling based on a lot of information, and we think it's realistic that we could actually break even in food service if we ran it ourselves. So the bottom line was this committee spent a lot of time not only reviewing the proposals, we met with each food service operator sometimes multiple times because we had them go back and give us a best and final after they submitted their original proposal, because quite frankly, we weren't satisfied with some of the financial impact because we thought we could do better than this with a third party, but basically their best and final was very little change from their original. They're in it to make money, obviously, and some of them want to make a lot of money. They operate multiple food service establishments, whether it's standalone restaurants or contract food service like this. So in the end, the committee recommended to the board that we bring it in-house. And we put together a plan to do this, very detailed timeline of how this would take place, because the vendors expressed some concern about the timeline of them taking over and not being notified until the due date was this Friday. We had to notify all the vendors whether they got the contract or they didn't. So you're late in September, so they're looking at 90 days to do a transition of 3 fairly large restaurants. So they were concerned about the timeline. So obviously, we had some concerns about making this happen. Now, it's a little easier for us because we already have the experience of the operations here. We have some of the licensing already in our name. We've got a resort license that we use to operate the alcohol sales, right? So third party would have to go out and apply for a new liquor license, for example. So there's some things that we can avoid that a third party wouldn't, but we did put together a very detailed timeline, including a very robust communications plan. So there'll be a lot more information coming out with a lot more detail within days and then in the coming weeks and months. But we wanted to, make the announcement now because we have to notify the vendors, and we assume as soon as we notify the vendors, everybody will know, since we have a vendor in there right now. So that was the recommendation. The board has agreed, not that it really required board approval. This is it's an operations matter that we don't approve every vendor that the POA hires to do something. But given the optics of it and the impact to the community, the board wanted to, make the decision, if you will. So we've done that this morning, and, we're going to put together, there's a couple more things here. In fact, I think we've got the Food Service Advisory Committee. So that's one of the things we're going to put in place. It'll be in the same time frame as all the other advisory committee appointments that get approved in January board meeting. So between now and January, in addition to all the other advisory committee openings that we have, we'll be looking for preferably 7 folks in the village that, again, we prefer that they have food service management experience, preferably even ownership. Just like FAC, you don't typically would apply for a position on the Finance Advisory Committee if you don't have any finance background. So we're looking for a similar thing, that we want people that know the restaurant business that can help advise management on running restaurants, menus, and everything else. But again, just like every other advisory committee, they're not making any decisions. They're strictly advising. And the plan is that all of the existing staff that currently run the restaurants will transition to the POA January 2, for example, when the restaurants reopen after New Year's, because the current contract expires on 12/31. So we don't have to rehire, go out and try to find 100 employees to run our restaurants. So we've got that. We're going to add one new position, which is the Director of Food Services. That will be, a director level in the POA and report, I believe, to Mitzi. But they're really the manager that will be over all food service, and they make all the hiring and firing decisions. They make the actual menu decisions, and so forth. And the advisory committee will report to them.
So John, can I give you a break for a minute?
Sure.
Okay. You guys don't know how hard it is to just sit here and talk at this microphone for as long as he has. Second of all, he brought it up, but he did not put in the vast number of hours that these people put in coming up with this, the contacting folks, the interviewing, the running down the grisly details. And that was one of the first things I wanted to bring up. I would expect tomorrow, when people are watching the video, or you get out and you start talking to your friends and neighbors, we're going to be talking about the property owners did not get input into this. Oh, yes, you did. We've been listening to you for years. Good, bad, and indifferent. We have been listening to you. And if you go back history-wise, the original developer came in, put a restaurant in, put a Toqua in, then put a Tenassi in, then put a Kahiti in. We've got 4 restaurants, and at the time, 4,500 people when I moved here. So it was going to have to be some type of a vendor or a contractor that was willing to come in here and be subsidized. Now, this is why I wanted to talk before you get this. There had to be some type of a subsidy because you couldn't make any money off of it. And this is what I think you didn't mention, but I talked to Jeff a little bit. When you send out 7 bids and you get 3 back, 4 of them are saying, I can't run a restaurant deep in a neighborhood and make any money. So then we go back, let's listen to the property owners again. You're giving this last one, current contract, free rent, you let them have weddings, et cetera, so that they can provide for their families and their employees. Then on the other hand, it is what great service we have, what great people we have, and all this. So now we're up to 9,500, 10,500, somewhere in that range. And now we're to the point, the original design was to have a restaurant that is minimally subsidized along with golf, recreation, and all that. But proposal 1, 2, and 3, and I'm not going to dig into the details as John did not, but when you dig into them, they may not say I wanted the rent, but there was a management fee. They may not say I needed this, but there was some other fee. And that's what all of those are. So whether it's a rent subsidy or a management fee subsidy or whatever it is, that's why they're all negative like that. The only fighting chance that we have as a property owners association is to take it in-house. It's the only way we've got to do it. Now, if we don't want to subsidize that, how do we not subsidize it? you use it.
I see.
If you don't like it, that's what this committee is for. This is not a taste tester committee. They all laughed at me when I said it this morning. So this advisory committee is not a group of taste testers or menu changers or that kind of thing. This is how to run this restaurant, how to market this restaurant, how to get us in there and use the restaurant to our greatest satisfaction. And that's what this boils down to. How can we reduce the subsidy as much as we have and make it owner value and owner, what's the other word I'm looking for? Pleasing, attractive as possible to all Tellico Village property owners. Thank you, John, for the time.
So to, the board to approve a new advisory committee has to vote. So the motion that's on the table, or will be on the table in a second, is to approve the creation and implementation of a Food Services Advisory Committee, acting under the direction of the Director of Food Service.
Second.
Any discussion from the board members? Any comments from the audience?
Those are good comments.
That's the kind we like to have. Okay, call the question.
All in favor?
All in favor? 6-0.
After the establishment of a Food Services Advisory Committee, a charter has to be approved. Do you want to talk about the charter a little bit?
Well, this, the charter template that we use for all the advisory committees are essentially the same, with the exception of maybe the purpose, obviously,
And the duties?
and the duties, but all the rest is template language, so it follows the same format as all the advisory committees.
So there's a motion to approve the Food Services Advisory Committee charter, and we noted this in the morning meeting, with the addition of the dispute resolution process, otherwise as presented.
Seconded.
Now, for discussion, let's explain that dispute resolution process, because it's in all the charters anyway, but I'm not sure everybody would understand.
Well,
Okay,
Go.
I'll
You
cover
go.
the
Your
dispute
turn.
resolution.
He's talked enough.
Sometimes in advisory committees, you'll have the members may not agree with the departmental head. And in the past, they would get frustrated, not knowing what to do. Some would pick up the phone and call the board members, et cetera. So back in 2018, when we rewrote all the charters, we inserted a dispute resolution mechanism, meaning if the members of the advisory committee, and this covers all advisory committees, if you have a disagreement or can't come to terms with your leader, your next step is to go see the CEO. Have a face-to-face, lay out the issue, see if you can get the problem resolved. If you can't get it resolved with the CEO, then you come to the board and talk about your issue. So that gives you a defined process. If you're on one of these advisory committees, if you're frustrated, can't work it out, there is a way to get resolution. You may not like the answer, but at least it gives you an opportunity to discuss it with the CEO and then the board. So that needs to be added to what we saw this morning to make it in compliance with the rest of our
it's the
charters.
boilerplate that's in every other advisory committee charter. So it's not like anything that's unusual.
And apparently, we used the wrong boilerplate, so that's why we're adding this language into the motion.
Any other comments from the board? Beth, do you have anything online? Any comments from the audience? Please go to the microphone, state your name, and make sure that the microphone's on. There's a button there that you can push. Left,
Right, the
right-hand
right
side. No, right
No,
on
it's right on top. It's the right-hand button that's got a little person on it.
Levon Mitchell, just a quick question. When will the charter and the ability to apply for this advisory committee?
Well, we'll start taking applications almost immediately, but the committee won't be seated until the board approves the appointments in the board's first meeting in January.
When will the charter be available?
tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Thank you.
Any other questions from the audience?
Chuck James, I have a couple questions. I think it's a great move. I think it's wonderful. First question is, how about, have you looked at what banquets and things have been scheduled out to next year? And if I am going to schedule an event for January or February, who should I contact?
Well, I guess until the director is seated, Mitzi. Because until that person is on board, she's the acting head of food services. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, yes, however, the current staff is still here and in place. You call Edgar, you call Skylar, you call whoever you call. They'll keep the
Okay.
same set of books. Nothing changes.
Okay.
But you can call me too.
Okay. So, but you have looked at what exposure you have beyond January
Yes.
1st? Okay. And the second question is, as far as bringing it in-house, does that mean that the servers then will become employees, or are they 1099s?
No, they're employees currently of AWE.
Of AWE, they'll become employees of,
Right.
and get our benefits and everything.
Well, actually, none of them work 30 hours except for
Yeah, they're
the
not full-time.
management. So anything under 30 hours, we're not required to provide benefits.
Okay.
So
But they'll be employees or 1099s?
they'll be employees.
Employees without benefits. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else wish to comment?
Go ahead, Tom.
So this is a question for Rick. We do have some
Please
employees.
state your name.
Tom McPhee, Kahidi. We do have some employees who work more than 30 hours. So they
Yes, we do.
will,
Yes, we do, and
Yes.
they will be offered benefits.
Thank you.
Yes.
Lindsay Tobin, Tanasi. So there's a lot of discussion about TOQA and what the fact that the sports bar closes before a lot of sports games are over. So once we bring it in-house, is that something that is up for discussion?
That's an operational issue that'll be directed to the Director of Food Services.
Okay.
Again, assuming the business is there, there's no reason they wouldn't. But, maybe the decision was made by AWE that there wasn't enough business after 9 o'clock to justify it. I don't know. But, yeah, that'll be the director would make those decisions.
So if it was perhaps even suggested that just on specific nights of the week, it stays open longer, that once it's ours, it's the director's to decide that.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, and
thank
then-
you.
And then again, the suggestion is, let's stay open to 10 o'clock. And say, oh, this is a great idea. Oh, let's just do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Great idea. But if nobody shows up on Tuesdays and Thursdays,
It's going to go away.
it goes directly into the subsidy.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Move to call the question.
Okay. Question's been called. All those in favor? 6-0. We're into the August finance review
Hang on a
now.
second. I was just going to summarize, I mean, I probably should have had this earlier. What we're hoping to gain, we've got roughly $6 million of revenue we do with food service, including Tenacity when it comes back online. So it's a sizable operation, and some of the feedback from those 7, I think 1 or 2 said it was too big for them to handle. I mean, they couldn't handle 4 restaurants. So it's a big operation, and it was, and I think currently is, our second biggest subsidy in the village, that we can hopefully turn around to be break even or even a surplus. And to reemphasize, management's going to have full control over the operation, the menu, the pricing, the service levels, that whole value proposition for property owners that will bring them into these restaurants. And, we could have the opposite effect we have, or the opposite situation we have now where they're overrun and people are complaining because they got to wait in line for half an hour to get a table. You don't know, but the big thing that we've heard a lot of complaints about is when they close this facility or other facilities to homeowners because they have a private party in here. It doesn't happen that often when they close the entire facility, maybe half a dozen times a year at most. But as I brought up during the budgets last year, AWE kept all of the rental income for renting this building, even though at the time they paid no rent. So it didn't make any sense for the POA to have that situation. And quite frankly, over the last couple of years, since I've been more vocal on food service, that's been one of the common things, is that people really were upset when they were in the facility and somebody told them they have to leave because we have some outside group that wants to rent this facility. So all that stays with us, all the revenue from those special events, those weddings generate a lot of revenue. And then, obviously, we can decide how we utilize these facilities. We've got folks down in the dining room today playing cards. A third party is probably going to say, no, you're not going to come in and take a table and play cards unless you're buying lunch. Now, we can make our own decisions about how we utilize our facilities. So we wanted more control over our facilities, which was one of the critical criteria for this decision. So just wanted to summarize it since we had these bullet points.
Just to let you all know, there will be a special telegram coming out when Beth with all his announcements. Tomorrow in the telegram, there'll be a lot more details and an announcement concerning this move to take the food service in-house. So look for your telegram in your email tomorrow.
Any more comments? Judy, I guess it's up to you now.
Welcome to the Crucible.
Okay, where's the clicker, Mr. John? I'm sharing.
Just so you in the audience know,
Here, okay.
Judy, give me a second.
Yes.
Just so the people in the audience know, I haven't seen you before. This is Judy Bedford, our new CFO. She's been here about a month now.
Yes, sir.
And she's digging into the weeds with the rest of us.
Drinking from the fire hose.
Drinking from the fire hose. Welcome to TVPOA at the beginning of budget season, so. Thank you all. I'm really excited to be here, and I've just loved every day, so I'm very happy to be here. Let's see if I can start off by getting it on one of the slides that tells us something. Oh, and we did try to make this bigger, so hopefully y'all can read it. I'm going to start off. We'll talk about the cash. The total cash, as you can see looking up there, the $20 million and the 16 over there on the December side is up about $3.6 million for the year. About $3.6 million of that is from the insurance proceeds for Tenacity, so that's riding in there. It would be in that $18 million number that says cash reserved. The investments, none of them matured in August, but we did have about 1.5.
You first.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, would you please, we usually don't carry 1.9 million in operating cash. Tell me why we're doing it.
Oh, I sure will.
I asked that for Steve.
Thank you. So right now, the actual cash balance is a little lower than that today. It's around 1.4, of which about 1.2 is the operating cash for true operations of the POA. And we have 3 more rounds of payroll, 3 more check runs, and a $400,000 payment due for our capital lease, the TRDA, yes, that. So we have discussed, and I'm probably going to pursue trying to set up a money market type account that's outside of the reserve so that we can at least make a little bit more money on that, but without locking it up inside the reserve account where you have to get board approval to pull it back out and pay some bills. So give us keep a little bit of flexibility, but also make a little bit more interest on the money than just leaving it sitting in the checking account.
I got one other point I'd like to make.
Okay?
If you look at our total cash of 20 million, this is for the property owners, 3.7 of that is the receipts we've received from our insurance policy so
Right.
far from Tenassi.
Correct.
As we head into budget season, some folks might think, oh, $20 million, we're doing great. Well, we are doing great. But we're also required to fund between $8 and $9 million to the reserves, which the budget process will show that. So when you take a look at the 20.3, you actually got to back off 3.7, because me as a property owner and the rest, we haven't put the money in ourselves. That came from a fire. So
Yes.
you got to keep that in perspective. Take what you see minus 3.7, that's what everybody here has been able to do. We'll look at the budget season and see how we're funding reserves.
Any other questions? So within that investment number, the 18 million, we had, again, nothing came to maturity in August, but we had about 1.5 million that is maturing during this month of September. And we've already made some strategic investment decisions to keep that, to reinvest that based on impending cash needs, and also keeping with our investment strategy and trying to take advantage of some of the better interest rates that are out there right now. With Morgan Stanley. Moving on to
Well,
the,
one other
okay,
point. Construction in process, that's showing $1.6 million.
yep,
Some of that's capital, isn't it?
yes, and I'm going to get to that one. I'm going to kind of go down the list of what's, first. I'm going to talk about the inventory first, and then I'll talk about the
Fair enough.
CIP. So the inventory number, you see that 1,042,000, sort of right under the receivable number that's bold, 565. We've had some prior discussions of that number being a little high, and are we, what kind of schedules do we have to kind of be keeping up with that? I dove into that number a little bit further, and of course, almost $800,000 of that inventory relates to Public Works. But within that $800,000, there's about $402,000 of utility tanks and pumps that are actually already in the ground. And that's basically like work in process. So it's added back to the inventory total, and we don't expense that until the revenue is recognized when the mailbox is planted. So that's a very conservative approach. It's consistent with GAAP, and our auditors have approved to recognize revenue and pull it out of the inventory officially when that occurs. So there's really only a little over $600,000 worth of inventory on the books. And of the remaining inventory that does belong to Public Works, there's about 8 items that make up about 60% of that, and they are turning within 8 months. There's actually a pretty nice churn on that inventory. So we don't really have a worry about the aging. So
Hey,
that's,
Judy, can you comment on the pretty significant reduction in AR? It's like $800,000 just this year.
that, I'm sorry, I don't have any extra information on that right now, but I will, I can look into that and get back with you. I don't know if-
It's good news, obviously.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, the collections, you would think that would mean that the
What might
collections
help
are up.
What might help if you go back, I know you don't have it in the packet, but there used to be a monthly report that showed the suspended accounts. And there has been a significant reduction because of the work that the finance group here has done by collections.
Sure.
And part of that might be the reason, but I'd start there if I was
That,
looking.
and I do, actually, I think that is part of it. They have reinstituted that and are able to foreclose and do some things to get the money back. So, and that will also tie in with that allowance for doubtful accounts. We'll write some of that off too. But I'll look to see if there was anything else that's causing that. But I think you're right that that's what that would be related to. So let's go down to the construction in process now. Yeah, that number is $1.6 million right now. And that is mostly, that's capital assets in there, and there will be some adjustments this month to move some things that are completed out of that into their related asset accounts. And then there will continue to be some fluctuations to that number through the rest of the year, as well as projects are started and others finish up.
And that will
So-
explode when you start the Tenacity rebuild.
Oh, yeah. I think that might be all on that page. Let me, okay. Within the loans, I'm going to skip one page more over and then come back to that. I just wanted to show you that there you can see the 3.6 on the cash change for the year. And then if you look over there, you'll see that the Welcome Center loan was paid off on August the 9th, I believe. That 291,284 went away. So that's kind of all I was going to say about the balance sheet. Let's go on to the income statement. Total revenue up there at the top, $21,419,000. That is up year over year and over the budget. We're in good shape there. The cost of sales, $3,532,000, is higher than the budget, and that particularly relates to the Public Works sewer tank installs that we've known for the whole year that that budget was a little squirrely and not quite right. So, but if you look at the current actual number compared to the prior year number, you can see that they do correlate well with each other, and the percentages are about the same. It's just that budget number was not accurately calculated, and will definitely be something that we'll have our eye on more closely in the upcoming budget season to make sure we know what's going on in there and that it's more accurately calculated. Let's move down and talk about some of the expenses. Operating expenses are trending far better than budget, and that is largely related to gasoline and fuel prices that were $5 and $6 a gallon versus the $3 that we, are actually incurring. So the rates are just, the actual rates are lower. So that will obviously convert to some savings at the end of the year. The maintenance number is trending a little favorable to the budget. And that is, again, largely due to Public Works. I believe they've had less of the major water line breaks this year compared to what they're experiencing this year. That number is kind of closing in a little bit more than it has in the past months because, the paving and patching that's going on. But there still probably could be a little bit of savings recognized at the end of the year on that one as well. The taxes, licenses, and insurance category, we are trending over the budget, and that pertains to our insurance rates being higher this year than last, and to the budget. Property insurance rates, marina insurance rates are up, and we have our ad hoc insurance committee, of which Mr. Bob is on, and myself, and Russell, and Marty from the FAC, and we are going to meet this coming month to really start trying to figure out ways to bring those rates down, things that we can do, claim levels that we don't want to file below, different things that might not need to be insured, different things we can do to try to really improve our premium position for the future. Let's see, what else? And then let's drop down to that reserve maintenance number on the bottom, 17,000 compared to the 1.6 million in the budget. Well, this, as compared to the CIP balance, which is the assets that are in progress, this one pertains to maintenance expenses that are being funded through the reserve. Well, today, there's just not, most of those are still on the books, but a lot of them will start to happen in the next few months. So that number, you will see that number start to increase in the coming months through the fall. So that number will get a little closer to reality there. Let's see here. Capital funding, and I'm going to scoot to the next page pretty quick that has more of the totals on it, but we went back and we had all the directors add comments over there on that far right column about the status of some of these projects. So we were kind of relying, and those numbers are so small, I'm sorry. Down on the bottom, near the bottom, where it says use of funds. So I'll tell you what those numbers are. The total budgeted for the year was $7.9 million. We have authorized a little over $5 million. That's the next to the last column over there. And so far, about $2.7 million has actually been paid. And then there's that $2.3 million column on the right-hand side. And I think that by the end of the year, a good amount of those, 2 million or so, will actually be realized and spent. And again, it's based on the notes that were provided by the directors. Many of those projects are finished. We're waiting on the bills. Some of them are, if you can see, they're to be completed and worked on in September and October. So a lot of those authorized but yet unpaid items will be spent. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on to my?
Just one thought.
Okay.
If you go back to your P&L,
Yes, sir?
where it shows, you come down to a subtotal now that we show surplus subsidy year-to-date.
Yes.
I know if you could squeeze a few lines above, what would be helpful for me is underneath that, if you would show capital expenditures for the period. Because what you're showing on this chart is what's going in to subsidy, or what's going into reserves. What you're not showing is what's coming back out for capital.
Okay.
Because net, obviously, we want what's going in surplus to be greater than what we're taking out in capital.
Sure.
Because we're trying to get reserves up.
Absolutely.
And
Okay.
if it's a lot of work, don't mess with it, but on an annual basis would be okay.
Date. Can you
what's-
read that?
Yeah, what's
Okay.
the status on that roughly 3 million that is the difference between those two numbers?
Well, that's what I was saying. About 2.7 has actually been paid, and the remainder of that is, the projects are still they have not been done yet, or they have been completed, but we haven't received the invoices yet.
Well, but the 5 million has been approved by the board to spend, right?
Yes. It has not all been spent yet.
No, I know that, but you
Okay.
still got the difference between the budget of 7.9 and the 5 million we've authorized.
Well, yeah.
Well, plus there was
Well, we've got,
carryover.
the Tenacity is in there for $1.5 million. The accounting system is in there for about 300,000. There's a lot of things that are on there that were budgeted, but they've not yet been authorized.
So they become carryover.
Yes, those will become
So it
carryovers.
looks like, so you got some canceled, right?
Yes, some of
Yeah,
those are
there's also,
canceled.
there's also some, when you say carryover, there, as an example, Golf has ordered a couple of
Equipment.
mowers that were crazy expensive. And those mowers have been on order. They were supposed to be, I guess it was like April, then it was August, now it's sometime next year.
Yeah, and
Got
we actually had yet another note. It just goes back and forth. I believe there was a couple of them were like 54,000, 64,000. Wells had mentioned that they might not come in until next year, and then he's gotten message, within the next few days, they might hear that they are going to be available. So there's a couple of those things that, are still pending. We'll just say they're pending, but,
Moving targets.
Yes, exactly.
So that final column really is the carryover event. When we get to year end, that final column that says 2.3 right now, that will be the carryover.
I think a lot of
Some of
that
it'll
is
be
going
spent
to be
this year
spent
still.
this
It
year.
just hasn't been
Yes,
billed.
I think much of it,
That'll be the number
should
that gets
be.
carried over.
Exactly.
yes,
Unless
Right.
right.
That's what I'm trying to get at, is,
Well, the difference between the budget and the authorized number, those items might not happen. And,
I'm not concerned about the
Yeah.
cash flow of it. It's just, I was trying to get at how much of that 7.9 is not going to happen.
well, like I say, right now,
Ever.
currently, about 5 million is authorized. We've got 3 requests today, and then it'll just be, if there's a few more of them that maybe come to be in the last quarter.
those could take away, but I don't, we're obviously not going to spend the money for the Tenasseee and unsure about the financial system at this point. If
So
there's
maybe
any-
next month, between Chet, you, and Clayton, you come with a list that say, here's what's still open, and here's the reasons why we're not going to spend it,
Sure.
or get it authorized.
Okay. Okey-doke.
In reality, a lot of the stuff we're discussing would also be a part of the budget process in terms of what our capital expenditures are getting carried over or not, and that sort of thing as well.
So may I ask you a question? I apologize, Judy, but could you go back to this financial report and go down to docks and RVs? I know everybody laugh. Here we go.
Is it on here? I'm sorry. Doc, what are you wanting to see?
No, you haven't showed it. I just
Oh.
scrolled down and looked at it. So you want to go down to docks and RVs.
Okay. I don't guess I
She
did.
doesn't have
Yeah,
the
look-
slide.
Well, anyway, anyway. This is, yeah, that's fine, go ahead, because you're going to get to laugh at me again.
There we go.
So, I bring this up every month, and this is the 8th month of reporting, and 7 of 8 months it's been this way. And on the 8th month, this would be August of 2023, we have 12 months of Kahidi dock revenue. That's 36 slips at $481 a slip, plus a 3% increase over 2022. And mine shows revenue prior year of $926,930. And it shows the actual this year of $893,855. One more time, how does that happen? We're going into a budget season. You're going to ask us to look at 7 months of incorrect data to come up with a budget for docks and RVs. It can't be done. It's either got to be fixed.
Or it has to be defended or understood why that number is different. It just can't be a number thrown out there.
Right, if you look at your, I don't know, this doesn't give us the gas dock, but your revenue's down 33,000, but your cost of goods sold is up 94. But if you take a look at the numbers, you got cost of goods sold this year less than 300,000. Last year it was 394. So my hunch is, part of this is, you can prove it, but my hunch is part of that's your gas dock difference. And then you also are throwing in your RV revenue in here. I don't know what your RV revenue was this year versus last.
If you go back and check RV, you'll find out it's gone up too.
And then you
'cause we
could
put
find
in more
out you've got
spaces.
bad accounting on the rental of the docks.
Well, in my mind, and this is probably where you're going, Pat, and I'm going to make it really simplistic. If you got 10 docks and all 10 docks are rented, the number should be pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
And I should be able to start out this year and start a budget to say we've got over 900 docks. I don't have the exact number here. It's close to 1,000 now. So you take that number, and I got the spreadsheet on this computer somewhere. I do it every year. You take by size, by number of that size, by the lease amount per month, you multiply it across, you add them up, and that's the number you're going to have for the 8th month. It can't be any different unless somebody didn't pay.
Well, there's that.
But you have a prior year number, you add docks, you add PWC slips, right? You fill them up, you got a waiting list of 200 plus, and we make less, we collect less revenue this year than we did last. And gas docks is a little bit of it, but it's
Okay.
not that much.
Actually, this could be improved upon by splitting the revenue line, saying revenue from slip rentals, revenue from gas
Oh, it is.
sales.
Yeah,
No,
well,
but
when
it's
you get
not,
in-
it's not here.
No, it's not, but you get into the detail it is. But again, Judy, I apologize sincerely. You're new. I've been here. This is the same conversation every month.
Well,
So I
will-
think,
Yeah,
yeah,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the answer is actually what Rick is saying, is that we muddy the waters by having multiple items in there, because by doing so, we may be finding that, yeah, right, the gas dock didn't get as much business as it did last year. Or something else has changed, but if we don't split it out, there's no way to define that. Or, to be really direct, it's gonna be really hard to prove outside of just the simple, I got 10 docks, I'm getting this amount of money, I should have that total. Without understanding that and seeing that, it's
Yeah.
pretty hard to say, because there is the issue of people not paying.
Right. And Judy, you, again, I apologize.
It's okay.
Your first time in the bucket. You got 3 areas that you're generating revenue, right? One of them is the boat slip, the dock slips, the PWC. One of them is gas,
One of them is RVs.
and one of them is RVs.
There's 3.
Right, there's those 3 that you're generating revenue. When you go back and look, RV's always pretty close every month. I'm not arguing RV. You go back on gas dock, and we had a real cool spring. We didn't have near the number of boaters refilling this spring that we did last year. But now that it started warming up, we do. You can look at the monthly and see it. But it's the docks. We put in 36 slips, go up 3%, and we're still short.
Yeah, you-
Look at just the docks.
Okay.
On
There's
this schedule,
something
you've
that-
got to separate out the 3 components.
I don't disagree.
Well, and would non-payment affect this revenue number?
Well,
or is
no,
it-
because theoretically, if we're doing accrual, it
It
should
would be
not. The
accrued,
number
it
should be
just
the
wouldn't be
number.
paid. Yeah, that would
Right.
be in your accounts
AR.
receivable, yeah. So I will definitely look into it, and it will definitely be something that we look very closely at for the budget as well.
Well,
making sure
I'm
we've got-
looking forward to it. You'll be the fourth CFO that I've challenged this to.
Okay.
4.
God help.
1, 2,
I
3,
see.
4.
4 more months.
Challenges and opportunities, Pat. Okay, are we ready to move on? Yes. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the CAF, the completion assurance agreements that were brought up last month. The completion assurance agreement is something that, for those of you who might not know, the home builders can elect to complete one and pay the fee to us in lieu of providing a performance bond. We charge 30 cents for all enclosed spaces, that's unfinished, and garages, but not for porches. And so the question came up last month, that, well, were we collecting enough? Did we have enough in the reserves to cover for anybody we might have to go in and finish their house? And what was the limit that we had established for said house? And I believe the number mentioned was $50,000, and that was based on what it would cost to tear one down, not necessarily what it
Exactly.
would cost to close one in.
Yeah, that's exactly how it was set up originally. Now, the question is,
What should it be?
what it should it be now?
Okay, so with lots of highly scientific research, I asked Beth to reach out to some of the builders and just give us an estimate of what it would cost to actually do that. And they said, well, it could be upward to about $150,000 if the house was large, if it had a very unique floor plan, however customized it was. And obviously, that number could vary pretty greatly depending on size and stage of completion, et cetera. So I also got with Miss Holly, I don't know if she's in here this afternoon, and she keeps a running schedule of how much has been collected via these agreements. So from 2018 through August of 2023, over $900,000 has been collected via these agreements. And so far, we have never had to act upon one of them and go in and complete a house to draw it in. That $900,000 is included in that $18 million. It's in the general reserve fund. So.
That was the deal, is we sequester 50,000, and all the rest of it goes to reserves.
Exactly.
That was the deal.
But at this point, so it's not earmarked specifically. We don't see that on the financial statements. You see your total number. It's kind of like the Tenacity number. It's in the total, but we don't see that. You have to mentally remember that it's there. So I think that we can pretty safely say that the 30 cents per square foot being collected is a decent number. We've gotten over $900,000. We've never had to act upon that. If that's sort of question one, is are we collecting enough? And then the second part of that is, well, do we need to segregate some money? Should we set up a second reserve account, pull about maybe $350,000 out so that it is separately identified, and let it stay there, and just let the continued money that is collected to go into the general reserve fund, and only replenish it if we had to actually spend some? Are you all interested in having that, some certain amount of money for a couple of houses to be pulled out into a reserve of its own? Or are you content to have this information maintained in a spreadsheet and you know what you have? But we can pull it out separate if, and,
So I need to throw something in here.
yeah, I know Chet will feel strongly about that.
Yeah, the biggest problem I have is it's just shy of $1 million sitting in our reserves, that if we were to have a catastrophic event, we would burn that money, and that's not what it's there for. It is there for us to be able to either to take down or put up houses that have been abandoned by builders or not completed by builders, whatever word you want to use. And therefore, having it sitting in the general population of reserves is not correct.
Correct, yes.
And so it needs to be sitting in a separate account. We can still call it reserves, because I know that's what the intent is, but it should not be in our general fund.
Agreed.
It should be
sitting-
sequestered.
Yes.
Yep.
As we had it originally.
Originally, yes. But, and then, the question is,
How
we established 50 because that's what we were told it would take to tear down one
Theoretically,
single
that,
house.
yeah, theoretically, that hasn't changed that much.
When's the
So-
last time we ever had to do this? Anybody
never-
know?
Never.
I don't think we've ever had to do it.
But you got to have the funds you're collecting in reserve in case it does happen.
Well, and we've come close recently to having 2 homes that are almost completed, but not completed, and then we would need to, instead of tearing them down, it would be stupid to tear them down. We'd want to finish them out and sell them.
And, yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead. You
And so
finish.
that's why I think that to say we will never use that money is number one, short-sighted. Just because we never have doesn't mean we won't.
Well, I
Because,
agree with you.
yeah,
We should have the money there
For that purpose.
purpose.
The only
that
question I
very
got is, yes, separate, distinct, untouchable, except for if you have to rebuild or tear down.
Right.
The only question I got is how much you need.
Right.
Right, and
That's the only question.
I thought maybe 350 would be the right number. That's 2 house
I think
worth.
that's a little high.
You think that's too much? 2 houses?
Just my opinion.
We've never had to use it.
We have not.
And what we originally, mean we can change, but it was for one house.
Right.
So if we had to tear a house down or finish it, is 150 enough? Or close enough?
Right.
Then I would make a motion, we set aside, increase the reserve to 150,000 and set it up as
Set
a
it
separate
aside.
reserve.
So it's earmarked. We
second
can
that.
see it. It's visible.
Always, and any excess above that goes to the general reserve like it always has.
Yes. Okay. I will make a note of that.
I don't think,
Well, I'll second the motion.
And I want to point out too, before we move on, just so you know, that this agreement, like others we've spoken about, it gives us the right, but not
We're not required.
we're not required to do it. And the agreement also has provisions in there for Kevin to recoup the costs, to cover the attorney fees. It adds a 10% admin fee on top of that. So even having it set aside and possibility of spending it, we also have a mechanism for trying to collect the money and get it back. So that, just to assure you that we do have other things in place to help recoup the money. 150, you guys good with that? Separate? Oh, go ahead. I thought you did. You already did. Okay.
Any more discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Opposed? 6-0 passed.
Thank you. Okay, so I guess we're moving on to capital funding. We have 3 requests, and they're public, all with Public Works today. Let me find my little sheet that looks like the one that's up there. Okay, so we have one for the Wellness Center, the water line replacement, and that actually is, we'll come to them each in a minute, but I wanted to point out that that one didn't have a budget. This one is just for a study. The other 2, the one for the water system improvement is a $550,000 request. We had $800,000 in two different projects kind of set aside for that. We used the $300,000 one to cover the pickleball courts that were, that's the little note on the bottom. That, since that had not been spent, we used that. So we pulled in another one, that water system improvement one, the $400,000 one, that was not going to be spent this year. So we made a little substitution to have the money to cover that. So I'm going to move on and let you all look at each
Well,
of them.
actually, let's talk about the Wellness Center water line
Okay.
replacement. That's basically for an engineering and design study,
Yes,
$30,000.
that
The
one's.
total cost of that is $750,000. And oh, by the way, there was a lot of dispute in the FAC meeting about that particular project. So I'm looking for the justification.
So first of all, it's $30,000 for the study,
That's exactly right.
and there is
Yes.
a period at the end of the sentence. It's
Understand.
not to go put it in, not to go do another project, because to be honest, nobody knows what that's going to cost, and all we're looking at is, and here's the general problem. We have an indoor pump for our fire suppression system
Right.
that is electric. If you had a fire in that building, guess what ain't going to happen?
Got it.
So if we put in a larger pipe in there, maybe, point of the study, it will have enough pressure to maintain the fire suppression system without a pump. That's one. Number two, we could actually split them apart, have the water supply being on one line to the building and another supply, water supply to the fire suppression system. Again, don't know if that will work. That's the point of the study. So in terms of other costs or all those other things, they don't apply. It's 30 grand to do the study to see if there's, makes any sense to do it at all.
And as I understand it, there's also some homes involved. That came up in the FAC meeting.
It did. It came up in the finance committee meeting because of the water pressure. There are some homes up there
Yes.
that when they would have poor water pressure, this potentially could increase the water pressure in these homes up there on the hill in the area where they are.
Beneficial.
Yeah. So the FAC, as Rick said, they had quite a discussion on this. They were against it at first, and then they came down and said, okay, we'll do the study, but we're making no other promises, et cetera, et cetera. You know, because the question was, there's a 6-inch line now, and the study hopefully would say we need an 8-inch line to get enough water pressure up there
Yes.
to put out a fire in the wellness center and/or the homes up there, because we run out of water, I guess, apparently. So they agreed to recommend just the study.
And that's why that's been changed to a 0 up there. Like, there's no further budget for this. We're just doing the study and see what the results
Well,
are.
and the
But there's
study
a
wasn't
question here.
budgeted to begin with.
It wasn't-
Yes,
yeah.
there's a
Yeah.
question that we've all just blown by, and it comes back to what we were talking about earlier with committees. You see that signature down at the bottom that says yes? That's from PSAC.
I understand
That's
that.
why PSAC only sent it to the Finance Committee to help them understand why they're requesting the 30,000 and for them to come up with, can we afford 30,000? That ended up not being the debate. The debate was, well, we think you're wrong. Why would you do that study? That's silly. That's not their gig. That is not their job. The job for them is to find out, do we have the money? Can we do this? Yes or no? And that didn't happen. And so we're back to that earlier conversation we had today, is the committees need to be able to trust the fact that the guys in PSAC are not going to send them something just because they think it's for giggles and grins, number one. And number two, they need to be very specific about what they're asking for. As I said, that's why I was trying to be real clear. This is a study cost, and that's it, because we don't know. And that's what, I guess the Finance Committee thought that we should know whether this is going to be beneficial or not. And the point of the deal is we got to have a study to find out. We think it will, but thinking don't pay the bills.
And Chip, I'm assuming you'll also analyze the cost of moving the booster pump with a separate power supply outside the building, because that might be the least cost option to get your goal achieved.
That's part of the studies.
That's part of the studies.
Part of this too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Part of the studies also, we Oh, that one's off. Okay, so anyway, growing community, request for expansion of the wellness center, that general area. That is our expansion amenity property up there. As long as we're looking at a very potentially hazardous situation with a 6-inch water line and an electrical pump inside. When the electric goes off, it does not run the fire suppression system. This 8-inch does and gives us growth opportunities. That's what PSAC is. And I'm looking around here, and I didn't see anybody, but normally they're sitting here to go along with but that was primarily their recommendation. Fire safety, future growth, and then fire safety.
So the motion is to approve the unbudgeted expenditure of $30,000 from reserves for an engineering and design study associated with the replacement of the Wellness Center water line.
Second.
Call for the question. All those in favor?
No comments out here first?
Anybody else have a comment out? Sorry.
There's finance.
Mike Braddock, FAC member. The discussion on this 30,000, what Brad Spiegel, the chairman, had was additional information that said, hey, this 30,000 could lead to $750,000. And what he was questioning is, wait a minute, are we really thinking about all our options and alternatives here beyond just replacing the line? And so that was his point. Yes, we went ahead with the 30,000 for the study, but, and I don't know what additional discussions Brad had with the PSAC members, but I think what his pushback was, which I understand completely, to use the simple example that Brad used in the meeting, was we could buy a fire truck for $750,000 and park it up there and spend less than what we are replacing the line. So let's just make sure that we're examining all our options.
Yeah, he did.
So I think that was the main pushback in terms of the comments that were in the FAC meeting, which I completely support and understand. So just trying to give some context as to the discussion and what we were trying to understand, not just saying, okay, 30,000, well, you know, that's nothing. Trying to understand where is this leading forward on down the line. And there was confusion between, is this purely just for the wellness center, or does this line also support some of the pressure issues for homes up in that area? And I'm not sure we ever got a crystal clear answer on that. So that was the context of the discussion, just trying to give some additional background.
Okay.
Well, if the issue is electricity, wouldn't it be an option to put a
Generator.
uninterruptible power supply to power that pump in the case of a fire?
Yeah, so anyway, when an uninterruptible power supply gets a sheared line, it doesn't interrupt anymore because it doesn't work.
Sheared line.
Like, there's a line that runs down to the wellness center. If a car hits that and that catches on fire, it doesn't have electricity.
Well, UPS would be right next to the building, in between that line.
That means you
and the
need a
building.
generator or you need a huge battery to sit there and run this thing.
Exactly.
You could get a nice generator for a lot less than $750,000.
Okay, well, I tell you what, then let's call
Let's
for a vote for a generator, a fire truck, or this. Let's do that. Let's see who's willing to stand up and say, put a fire truck up there.
We're voting on whether to do the study. $30,000.
That's it.
That was never budgeted.
That's it.
Any more comments? Call the question. All those in favor? All opposed? 6-0.
Okay, let's go back to the other one. This one. Okay, this is Chota Elevated Storage Tank. And this is the one where we took the $400,000 sewer continuation, or what is this? Sewer improvement, and added it to the $500,000 pump booster money to have the money to cover it. This is another Jacob study to provide the Chota Elevated Water Storage Tank Project, and they will provide all the designs and along with, up to the final design, along with the bid phase and the survey.
So the motion's to approve the expenditure of $555,000 from reserves for engineering and design services associated with the installation of the proposed Chota elevated water tank.
Second.
Discussion.
Question to Clayton. I saw him. There you are. Could you come up here, please? And it's just, because I don't remember in the PSAC meeting whether we came, because the board, I think, asked PSAC or Jacobs Engineering to look in that. I'm talking pedestal with a big ball. It looks like a golf ball sitting on a tee. We've all seen those. Or a multi-leg. Was Jacob not supposed to give us a return on investment between the two? Because there's a pretty big price difference.
Yeah, and they're working on that, but we're not.
This is not it.
This doesn't cover this. This isn't recommending any tank because both tanks require the same engineering study and stuff. So yes, they are working on it. He gave us some preliminary numbers that everybody in this room would be deceased before we would spend that extra $900,000, on painting and maintenance on that, but he will have an official ROI on that.
I just wanted to
And that was the
clarify.
board guidance. by the
Yes.
way.
Yeah, and I
Yes.
just wanted to clarify that that was not part of this.
Correct.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Anybody have any questions? Anybody from the audience have any questions about this? Call for the vote. All those in favor? 6-0, passed.
Okay, and the last one is for the milling and paving, $134,300, where the asphalt is sliding in several areas, and the areas need to be repaired to stop water from penetrating the road and causing problems in the subgrade.
So the motion's to approve the expenditure of $134,300 from reserves for the milling and paving of the following areas: Chota and Utsama, Chattooga West and State Road 444, Malacqua and State Road 444, Chota and the entrance to the POA, and Chattooga and Chattooga Point Courts. Try that one.
Mouthful.
Is there a second to that motion? Okay, okay. Any more discussion?
Yeah, actually, as I understand it, even after this expenditure, there's money left in the budget?
Yes, I believe we do still have, was it about $100,000 left in the budget?
And I can explain that. So every year we do a street evaluation.
I know you do.
Last year, when we done the street evaluation and graded our streets, we based our budget on our worst streets, overland, milling and paving our worst streets. And then in January, February, we done another evaluation before we took out, set out an RFQ on the streets that we wanted to do. We, Public Works, along with PSAC, agreed that we wanted to switch and do some other streets that were worse than the ones that we thought was the worst last year because of traffic and stuff like that. So after we done the streets that we felt was worse and the parking lots that we had planned to pave, we'll come in about $100,000 under budget.
So that will be savings.
Yes, sir.
So question on why there wasn't 3 bids. I know what it says. It says because they were the low bidder on our last project, we're just going to use them again. So why do we deviate from the purchasing practice of going out for 3 bids?
Well,
We did make the effort to go out to multiple sources for the work that needed to be done. Unfortunately, we only got 2 bids back, 2 competitive bids. The total number of bids that we did go out to industry for, seeking price and capabilities, was, I believe, a total of 4.
Okay, because the documentation said we were only going with 1. It didn't show other bids. So this specifically said you didn't go out for bid, it just said you chose the last one because they were the
No,
low cost.
the original contract, this is going to be a follow-on to an existing contract, a change order. And the intent was, since they're already mobilized on site, that our costs were going to be a little bit cheaper. So-
That would be helpful if
It
that would
would. I
be
did-
put up there.
This is the first time that I've seen that, so.
Okay.
But explanation for you, that's the rationale that supports that, sir.
Okay, and then to be clear, you weren't planning on doing this at the beginning of the year, Clayton? This is a late add to your schedule?
Yes, sir.
It's a substitution.
It's substitution from what we had planned to do. You know,
Okay.
so.
Yeah, my biggest issue was the way it's explained. It was like, oh, we just went with the last bidder because they were the low one on the last one.
Well, I'll take the blame for that, and I apologize. It won't happen again.
I got a question then.
Well, good, we've got plenty of people to blame.
I think about a year ago, the board authorized going further out into the future and start contracting so we could get more bids, hopefully more favorable pricing if we're planning these things more than 6 months in advance. So I'm asking, are we doing that? Are we looking at next year's projects and getting on people's calendars?
We're trying, but with the asphalt index fluctuating so much, no one's going to give us a price and hold it for next year. They just will not. When I've reached out to Rogers Group and Harrison's and Deer Cap, they will not. PRI will not, because the asphalt index is so volatile, you never know where it's
Well,
going to
maybe
be.
you can't get a firm price, but you could get on their calendar and get a commodity adjustment or something. There's ways of doing it. Obviously,
Yeah, yeah.
purchasing folks know how to do that.
Yeah, you can put an index in the contract.
Right.
Yesterday,
please
Chet
let
and I
people know-
talked about.
Jeff, please let people know who you are.
I'm sorry, I'm Jeff Tagula, the purchasing manager. And yesterday, Chet and I, we spoke about this specific thing with regards to long-term contracts. The intent is to establish task order type release contracts, whereas we can negotiate a price for this given year. We can escalate it based on economic factors on the out years. But again, working with Clayton, we'll have to establish the need, write the work statement, we'll get it out on the street and see what these people can provide back to us with regards to what their capacity is and what they're willing to commit to.
Right, because you could do a multi-year contract, put it out there. You know, if we know we're going to spend $1 million a year on this exact activity, see if you could get people interested in a multi-year project. Of course, the pricing would vary based on the commodity, obviously, and economic factors, but get locked in so we get preferential treatment on their schedule.
Oh, absolutely. Now, keep in mind that we're a very small piece of the pie.
Yeah.
You know, whenever you're talking about federal contracts and years worth of commitments out of the government, again, we're not their biggest concern. I hate to say this, but some of these groups come out of we're gap fillers, unfortunately. I hate to put it that way, but we are. A very small portion of their business. But the intent is to try and establish some type of means of delivery with regards to contracts, whereas we get on their calendar just as well as the big guys.
Yeah, that's the whole point here, and the reality of it is that we are the small fry, and we compete with the counties around us for these guys, because there isn't 47 asphalt people in this area. And so the counties are all over that, and of course, TDOT swoops in when they've got a problem, and they go, yeah, we don't care what your calendar is, you're working for us. And so those are the kinds of things, but the point you're trying to make is well taken, John, is we want to try and get on the calendar with those caveats of, yeah, the price may change, but we still want you on our calendar so we know we've got a live body doing asphalt work at this time.
Right. And we get the projects done in the year we planned for them. And one other request, Judy, when we get into projects like this where it's a big number and, we're spending a little bit of it, we need some kind of a reconciliation of where we are to date in the project. Like we had to ask how much is left on this $1.1 million. It'd be nice to have that on this form.
That also came up in the FAC meeting.
Little supplemental information, that is on the board reserve spending report. If you look in the notes in the far right column, that information is there. I'm not saying that you shouldn't get a schedule, I'm just saying the information was put forth there, because we did go through that in the FAC meeting to make sure that we understood where the project was in total in terms of what had been authorized, what had been spent so far, what is remaining potentially, and are there projects still coming. I agree with you, though, these funding requests can be better documented, better explained, and overall context put together better than what we're seeing so far.
So we still need to vote.
Call the question. All those in favor? 6-0, pass.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. First time in a crucible wasn't that bad.
We didn't turn up the heat this time.
It's like a season next week.
Yeah, the heat comes up for that.
Are there any other issues to come before the board today under others?
There was a comment from Brad Spiegel online about Pat's question on the dock. He said the variance is in the gas docks.
Okay, thanks, Beth. There being nothing else to come before the board, nothing from the audience,
Yeah, there's some audience. I can't remember. you not having an oven.
sit down.
The little person.
Okay. I'm Susan Gingrich from Tellico Village. A lot of people in the village do not know me because I have found it is very difficult to communicate within the village. Beth, I'm not talking about what your efforts in communication. I really wanted to move to Tellico Village. I'm the one that wanted to come here, not my husband. And the first time we left to visit Tellico Village, we were both working, and it was a holiday. It was Thanksgiving Day weekend. We got into a very bad accident on 81. If you know, if you're familiar with it, it would be when you were passing from Maryland to West Virginia. My husband fell asleep driving, and we went off the highway, and God was looking out for us. The car was tilting back and forth and could have easily turned over. It didn't. We weren't damaged. My car was very damaged. We were lucky it could be repaired, but it was an older car. But after all that's happened to me here, since living here, I wonder if that wasn't a message from God not to come here. Okay? But he wanted me here, and I'm still here. I'd like to return to Pennsylvania, but as long as I'm here, I care about the people that live in Tellico Village. I care about the taxpayers of Loudoun County, and I will do what I can do to help them. I almost didn't come today and speak because I have never felt so demoralized as I'm feeling right now. And it has to do with the treatment of me from Loudoun County elected officials. I've expressed before the difficulties in being an accomplished woman living in Loudoun County with the good old boys who don't treat women the same way. I've got lots of experience. I got lots of stories to share. I have written a lot about Loudoun County, which some of you know about. But I'll just explain the latest, what happened lately. On Monday, I went to the Budget Committee, the Loudoun County Budget Committee. Their budget committee has no one on it that has any expertise in budgeting. The state does allow there to be a member of the public appointed to the budget committee, and they're aware of that, but they have not chosen to do that. Most of their committees are only made up of commissioners or people selected by commissioners, and they are not selected for their expertise in anything. It's because they're a friend, they're a supporter. There's a lot to the story, but anyway. I went to the budget committee. Prior to going to the budget committee, I submitted a formal records request to the person and also to the budget director. And I asked, by this notice, I am requesting the following for the Loudoun County Budget Committee meeting on Monday, September 18th in the Loudoun County Office Building. Agenda, minutes, packet including handouts to be distributed at the meeting and those not originally included in the initial packet. By the way, there is some confusion among the public as to the exact time this meeting on Monday is scheduled. Please let me know the start time. Thank you for your attention. The only thing I received back was a message from the budget director that the meeting was at 3:30. I got to the meeting and I sat down and I was waiting for my packet to be handed to me. Nothing happened. So I was confused and I stood up and I went over to someone else to see if she had a packet because I wasn't the only one. She didn't. The mayor, the county mayor says to me, you know, is there a problem? And I said, well, I'm a little confused. I requested a packet and I don't have it. And he said, well, we can make copies for you later. Sit down, you're interrupting this meeting. Is that the way you treat a taxpayer? Is that the way you treat someone from Loudoun County? Yes?
Do you have a question for the POA?
I have a comment for the board, yes. I am concerned, very concerned, that we are not going to have the representation that we deserve that will let Tellico Village have the power, because we're not getting it now. And if you just let me finish, I'll hurry. I'll be very quick with this. My question, I have offered to meet with the board before. I have gone to the Governmental Affairs Committee meeting. I know they have no power. The board has the power. I met with Winston and I met with Mitzi in the past about Loudoun County problems. I've offered to meet with Chet. There's a lot of problems that y'all are not aware of. You're not, maybe you do know that laws are broken all the time and that they think that they're above the law. I don't say anything unless I have documentation or experience to say this. But besides that meeting, I went to the workshop meeting, which was that night. And the workshops and meetings for Loudoun County government, anybody is supposed to be able to say anything they like during the public comment section. There's only one public comment section, which is at the beginning. There used to be two. Now there's only one. I went up to make my public comment, and my public comment had to do with an email I had sent one of the commissioners, who's also the chairman of the Solid Waste Commission, asking for information. He didn't reply to me. So I sent a second message.
Susan, excuse me.
Yes.
Do you have a question for this board?
Do I have a question for this board? Okay, I guess I do.
Well, actually, what action are you asking the board to take?
Okay. Well, I'm asking the board to meet with me. I did meet I don't think any of you were on the board when I ran for county commission.
I was.
Were you? Do you remember that?
Steve was here. I think Bob lived here. John.
And you remember the disrespect of the three existing officials not coming to, not answering the questions that you ask and not?
No,
You
no.
don't remember that?
No, not specifically, but,
Okay.
but the issue is, and what Rick was talking about, I'm getting the impression that you want us to police the Loudoun County
No,
Commission?
no.
What are you asking us to do?
Well, I'm asking you to, I'm asking you to learn more about Loudoun County government, for one thing, because it's very important. You know, I think you come from great places, you worked in business and everything else, but if you haven't had real government experience, working in government, working with government, you can't see the things that I can see as a former bureaucrat.
Well, given that, and not to interrupt, but again,
Yes.
what would you like us to do?
I'd like you, first of all, just to let me speak for a few minutes and not interrupt me.
Well, he asked to
I know
hold
you
it
do.
to
I know
3
you
minutes.
do. Okay. Marty, I talked to Marty after the last town hall meeting, and we were talking about Loudoun County government. He's not here, so this is hearsay. And he said to me, "You're a troublemaker, aren't you?" And I said,
I would have never said that.
"No,
I
no."
think he would have either.
I said, "Yes, God made me a troublemaker, because sometimes He wants people to be troublemakers, and sometimes those people are also good leaders."
I 100% agree. I'm kind of known, or you wouldn't believe the names they call me, but I appreciate them. But again, what do you want us to do? You're
Well,
talking about Loudoun County.
Here's what I'd like you to do. I would like the board members to once in a while go to a Loudoun County workshop or a Loudoun County meeting and see what goes on, and see how people like me, who try to hold them accountable, are disrespected.
But I still can't do anything, even if I'm there and they disrespect you. That's theirs. That's not my authority to police the county government.
Do you care how villagers are treated?
You won't believe how I care they're treated. But
Do
again,
you care that the laws, does it bother you that some elected county officials feel that they're above the law?
very much. And
I mean,
same
some
thing
of you
with
are
You haven't told
lawyers.
me what law they're violating.
I don't know. You haven't asked me
Well,
what you want this board to do.
Okay, I would like you to meet with me, and I'll be happy to give you the evidence, you don't want,
But I can't police them, Susan, so what is the evidence?
If it has to deal with POA business, that's one thing, Susan, but it appears you have some issues with the local county
Well,
government, which we have and this is a business meeting.
Yes, and I have said that I've not made any friends, that I wish Loudoun County government was run more like the POA. But, if you don't care,
No, Susan, I've actually been to Loudoun County meetings.
So
And
you-
yes, I don't like the way that they operate.
yes.
And oh, by the way, there's not much I can do about it.
Well, you can,
I vote against people that are running for the commission or the mayor.
yes.
But that's me exercising my voice.
Well, okay, the three county commissioners that represent Tellico Village are part of the problem, and I could share with you.
But they stand for election.
And we can't police them.
You know, when they stand for election, we all have the option to express our opinion with our vote.
I would have hoped that if one of you would have been there when I was told that I had to stop speaking by Commissioner Shaver, who wasn't even the chairman, and the chairman Cullen, that somebody there would have said, let her speak, because they have no policy, guideline, or anything that gives them the authority to, okay,
Don't know what to do.
you don't know what to do?
Nope.
Well, here's the thing.
Well, I know what to do. I want to leave this place because I don't want to live in a place where laws are broken and nobody does anything about it.
Susan, excuse me.
Sure.
I announced at the beginning of the meeting that we were going to limit comments to 3
Yes,
minutes.
and I
And
understand.
we have been more than generous with you, so
Yes,
thank
you
you.
have.
Thank you very much.
Yes, you have. And I thank you very much, and I'm happy to talk to anybody. I also,
Your time is up. Thank you. We've been more than generous. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that's what we announced, that it is part of the meeting process today. Next speaker.
Hi, I'm Gig Wilkowski. I live in Tenasseee Hills. During the meeting today, announce quickly the new candidates for the 2 open seats, and is that going to be published in the Telegram tomorrow?
When will it hit the Telegram?
Okay, well, my question then is about, I think I heard 5 names. I'm not sure how many.
You did hear 5 names.
Okay. How does that vote work? Do we, I'm 2 years.
Okay, so let me explain the process. So once the board has certified the candidates, they basically campaign for the offices. And, oh, by the way, and I don't know what the date is this year, the HOA runs a candidates night.
October 12th. I remember, I
October
saw that.
12th, and the candidates are allowed to make a statement, and then they have to answer questions. Following that, you'll receive a card in the mail telling you how to register your vote. The election will start November 1st, and it'll run to, I think, the 22nd, 18th. And you'll vote. We actually have an outside vendor that does all the tabulation. They're called VoteNet. The POA does not touch anybody's ballot.
I understand. I'm just trying, how is it's 2 open seats, and there's 5 candidates, is the 2 top vote getters?
Yes, that's how it works.
Okay, that's all I was trying to ask.
Oh, I'm sorry.
The ballot will ask you to vote for 2 people.
2 people, and that's per household or property?
Per
owner?
lot.
Per property.
So if you own 2 lots, you get 2 votes?
You have 2 votes.
Because you pay 2 assessments.
2 assessments.
I would just like to add, from a communication standpoint, we'll have a special telegram just for the election that will have all the bios and photos once we receive those, and those will also go on the website. In your rotary card that you get to vote, there'll also be copies of bios in that as well.
Any other comments from the audience, from the board?
Move to adjourn.
Meeting adjourned.